I'm Abubakar from GitLab, and I'm here to talk about Zero-Trust DevOps. Yeah, I'm sure these are Zero-Trust, like a couple of buzzwords that we all hear about lately. And because of DevSecOps and shifting left, yeah, every time, everywhere you go, there's always a talk about why you need to shift left and why, as an organization, you need to prioritize ensuring that right from the beginning of your software development lifecycle, you prioritize security. And that's because of the recent incidences. There is no shortage of incidences always happening. In a recent survey we did at GitLab, 57% of the respondents, I think about 5,000 of them, responded that, okay, yeah, their organization are either shifting left or making plans to shift left. But then, 43% of the security people kind of feel their organizations are somewhat or very unprepared for the future. And that is quite reasonable because due to all the incidences we've been seeing lately, SolarWinds, Log4j, and a ton of them, they are right to be concerned because every single time, if we look at this graph, you see 650% increase, and it's consistently going up. Every day there are new challenges coming out, even if they are not major incidences by bad actors. For example, like in the case of the NPM registry in 2016, where a developer unpublished their packages in protest of an brand infringement from Kik. They had a package called Kik. So Kik issued a brand infringement to them, and NPM asked them to unpublish. So in protest, he decided to unpublish everything that he had published, taking out left pad and breaking a lot of people's pipelines. So that isn't necessarily by a bad actor, but that can happen because with a lot of activism happening lately, lots of organizations can decide, or people can decide to pull their packages and in turn affect your own software development lifecycle. And that's where, okay, most organizations have been looking at, let's do zero trust. Yeah, in our corporate networks, zero trust is quite popular. I remember I shared a doc recently with someone publicly, and within 5 minutes, I got a Slack notification, hey, we noticed you shared a document outside as public. Did you do this intentionally? Can you change the settings better? Almost immediately. But why can't we also do this for our software development lifecycle? Now, if we look at this chart from Salsa, Kelsey mentioned Salsa in the morning when he was talking about software lifecycle. Now, at almost every point of the software development lifecycle, there are places where vulnerabilities can come in. Do you trust your developer to push the right code? Do you trust the platform hosting your code, your version control system, to not play with your code? Or if they are compromised, how sure are you that your code is safe? Now, when you are building your software, the build systems you use, how safe are they? The CI machines that run your builds, how safe are they? Now, when you are pushing your code to a repository online or your registry, how sure are those repositories? Yeah, a lot of us just do, hey, Docker pull, boom. Or now, when there are a lot of options aside from Docker, we have Key, we have a lot of other ones, and you can even self-host. Some people self-host their Docker containers. How sure are you that those container images are safe in those repositories? And even after, okay, everything is fine, and you push to your maybe Kubernetes cluster or whatever production systems you are using, are you sure your workload are still safe in your own production? Things don't end up getting changed. So at every point in time, there are points where things can go wrong as an organization. And one of the ways we've been trying to fix it as an industry is scanners. Almost everywhere you look, there are scanners. Infrastructure as code, there's a scanner. Front end, there's a scanner. Every single point, there are scanners. And you have to sift through a ton of information that these scanners generate. Oh, you use Trivy to scan a Docker container, and it, boom, 100 severe vulnerabilities. Oh, this medium, oh, this, that. As an organization, as an individual, it's useful for you, but as an organization, how do you make sense of all these signals that they are generating? I saw a joke online that, hey, we need to fix security. Someone said, okay, Let's write secure software. Another person says, you can just throw a bunch of scanners that make unnecessary noise at it. So, and as an organization, one way to solve this is, okay, with all these scanners, you have to make sure you have a continuous process of ensuring that at every point in time, your application gets scanned. When your developer wants to push their code, there's a scan that needs to happen. When the code gets to the version control system before an MR, the people reviewing it should see, what are the security vulnerabilities that were generated while scanning the code, and so on. And with the way the rapid way we build software these days, this needs to be continuous. At no point in time should there be, let's just push to production that way. It never works fine. Jumping the software development lifecycle. Now, this is an example of an output tree we generate. Okay, as an individual, this might make sense to you. Let me fix this, let me fix that. But at the end, how does all these different signals you're generating from all these tools as an organization make sense? Can you see trends? Can you proactively prevent certain things from happening? Can you mitigate certain things? Okay, how can you ensure that your developers get the right amount of education? Because, you've been seeing, we've been getting a lot of passwords and secrets being exposed. Maybe it's pointing that your developers are not writing their code properly to not expose secrets. So one of the things would be probably, maybe get them a training or something to ensure they know how to write the right codes that will not expose secrets. And to make sense of all these signals, there are lots of processes and procedures that can be implemented. For example, as an organization, what policies do you have in place? How do you manage all these vulnerabilities? And one thing as an industry, we like to stand on the shoulders of ourselves. This team built this, let me build on top of it. And one way is when you discover a vulnerability, do you keep it to yourself or you share it with the community? Because if another company sees a vulnerability, that's why we all see the CVEs out there, because someone saw it and someone shared. How do you manage all of this? So filtering all the signals to make sense of them as an individual, as a team, as a company, is very crucial to how you implement your Zero-Trust DevOps. Now, first, let's look at vulnerability management. When, you run Trivy, it shows up a lot of container images. Okay, fine. Then there's a CVE that comes up. You as an individual are able to fix it. But your organization, the security team of organization, also needs to have a visibility of, what are the vulnerabilities that are being generated by the software our teams are building? And if we see a trend as an organization, what policies can we implement? Because it's not enough for, we've seen a vulnerability, we fixed it, but your organization needs to understand, how often are my team exposing secrets? How often are some other vulnerabilities happening? That way you can then set up policies in place. But first, as an organization, you need to have centralized view. For example, in this image, you're an individual contributor. You've written your code, you've seen vulnerabilities, you fix them. Then your team also needs to see the vulnerabilities that you've identified, so they can learn from it or prevent it from happening. Or probably there are certain vulnerabilities, probably this is a false flag. Then someone sees it and says, no, this isn't a false flag. These are some of the things that can happen. But then as your department as a whole, probably across several projects, all this might be within a project that you are working on. So what if this same vulnerability that you ignore happened in a different project? So your department as a whole should be able to have a centralized view of all the projects under our department. These are the vulnerabilities we are seeing and identifying. And they can create mitigations to solve them down. Then, as an organization, at GitLab, I've seen companies where they have thousands of projects across different departments. Even some teams are completely unaware of certain projects that are happening within the same organization, which is definitely what most of us are familiar with. So the security team of your organization should be able to stay on top of, these are different vulnerabilities happening, be able to identify trends. or when they see, okay, probably they attended a conference or they are subscribed to some newsletter and a new CVE has been published that the teams are not yet aware of, they can set up policies that, okay, if this CVE appears in any of the code within the organization, the MR, merge request, should be flagged and an extra approval from this team or that team should be added to it automatically. So that it's not left for the individual contributors to always, yes, we want to shift left, but when you get to the left, they might not be fully aware of security challenges because I might not be invested in constantly learning about security challenges happening because probably I'm just a front-end developer. I might just be aware of certain ones that happen to front-end developers because that's my field. But the security team will have more, because they are more invested in security tooling and research, they can be able to identify things right from the top and pass those informations down. So that the moment you push your code, you're like, oh, you can't do this because we recently discovered this and this happening.
Hi, we are Eficode and we are behind the DevOps conference. DevOps is not a role. It's a way to increase organizations' ability to deliver applications and services faster with better quality. If Agile and DevOps are not yet part of your whole organization, reach out to us and let's discuss how to make them real for you. You can find us at eficode.com. The links are in the description. Have a great time with the DevOps Conference talks.
Now, and from having a centralized view comes policies. And there are policies that can be in different forms. For example, context-aware controls are where, depending on what you do within your application or where you change, policies should be able to come in that will say, oh, you changed something in this folder. This person and this person needs to approve. Or you're a front-end engineer who touched some DB migrations. Someone needs to check it and confirm. Or some security issues came up for Docker files. Maybe some of the images you are pulling. Someone else needs to come in. Now, and also probably matching with push rules. You can be able to say, oh, your commit is not signed. The push rules should set that it should not be allowed into the code repository. Or some extra rules on where you are pushing from, how you are pushing the code, and so on. Push rules can set, oh, your commit should not get to the version control system because it has failed this set of policies. Now, then some other things that you can implement are things like password management. Now, someone has exposed AWS secrets. Now, instead of having to tell them, oh, you've exposed secret, you can automatically remediate it, probably through the AWS API. Immediately the secret is discovered, it's rotated. Because there was a time, I think there was one report I saw of some security researchers. They were combing through logs of projects on GitHub, and they were discovering a ton of passwords, API keys, secrets, and so on. And that's like a gold mine for bad actors. But as a company, you can set up policies, even right from the top, that anytime any form of secrets are exposed, immediately set up flags or alarms to buzz on Slack or somewhere. Oh, this has been exposed. Or use the platforms where those secrets are generated to automatically rotate them. Now, you can also have things like risk assessment or non-repudiation. For example, in non-repudiation, you are sure that this commit that this person is pushing, because it's signed, no one can come back later and say, oh, I didn't make this commit. If it wasn't signed, okay, or probably like Kelsey was mentioning earlier, someone used your email, modified their Git config to push a commit in your email. I think there was a tweet one time about Linus Torvalds making some change somewhere with his email, and he said he didn't do it. It was just someone that was trying to play some prank. Now, with non-repudiation, can be sure that every commit that goes into your system is definitely by someone, and the person cannot deny that I didn't do this. Now, then, with a couple of other policies that you can implement as a company, but the main goal here is to ensure that for every signals that you are getting from your vulnerability management, you are able to understand it as an individual contributor, as a team, as a department, and as the company as a whole. Because even as we are shifting left, we should be able to make sure that we stay on top of those challenges. Now, then the concept of code owners and MR approvers. Different parts of the code can be changed. And it is very important as an organization to ensure that, if certain parts of the code are changed, the individuals who are responsible for that part of the project, probably you have a monolith project, certain individuals that are in charge of that project are aware and can be able to approve. Automatically, they are like, you need to approve this change that this person is trying to introduce. Or you can set up policies. We've discovered this CVE come up at a certain point in time. Because this CVE is now in your project, we need to add more scans. Probably we discovered a CVE that's related to NPM. Maybe we need to run some Node.js scan or something. Or you add more scans based on different issues that come up within the pipeline, also your build. Now, then in certain instances, when you discover that, certain security issues are reoccurring, maybe we've fixed this before, then you reoccurred, you can even bring in the security team automatically. Adam, you need to approve this before it continues. Or some CVEs are reoccurring. Certain approvals can be added to the merge request to ensure that, this thing is secure before it goes to production. Now, another thing is separation of duties. Most times when you create a merge request, depending on certain changes that have been made, you can ensure that different teams need to approve different parts of the code before it's accepted. You modified probably certain parts of the code that in one way or the other, you are a backend engineer, but you went and touched something that involves front-end, or you modified certain Docker containers also. It's not just enough for one person to approve. Also, other teams can be called in. Do you give a pass on this, or do you give a pass on that? That way, we ensure that the right amount of code passes through. Now, but one of the key things also is professional development. There are certain new challenges or vulnerabilities that will come up within the industry that your team might not necessarily know or know the consequences of it. Now, we all get the monthly security training emails from PR, HR, and so on. The same thing here, where if a new vulnerability has been discovered in the code, or you will see, from the trends as a security team, we are seeing more of this particular CV or this vulnerability. Why don't we introduce certain form of training for our team so they can get more knowledge why it's important to avoid these mistakes or not allow this to get in the code. And in the booth earlier, I was discussing with the folks from Code Warrior, I've forgotten their name. And one of their solutions that fascinated me was, the moment a CV is discovered, your platforms get the right training material and challenges to be able to share with the team that, you need to secure Code Warrior. Yeah, I can see it in the list there. Now, as soon as the CV is discovered, the right training to be able to avoid that CV is shared with the developer or the team so that they know, probably it's a new thing that just came up, and they are not necessarily aware of it. They get training. That way, you don't just depend on, when someone looks at this merge request and they approves it, everything is fine. But you get the right amount of training, resources to be able to ensure that at every point of the development lifecycle, no vulnerability can just pass in. So now, the main core of this, my talk is, scanners can generate a ton of signals, but it's how you translate those signals, make sense of them, identify trends among the signals that have been generated is what is most critical to ensure that you have Zero-Trust DevOps. Right from the beginning of your software development lifecycle till the end. And one of the ways, like I mentioned, that you can be proactive is ensuring that it's not just the individual contributors that are aware of this or the team. Your organization as a whole have an idea of all the vulnerabilities happening within all your projects and be able to mitigate or avoid some of them. Yeah, that's the, okay, yeah. Compliance. It's one of the favorite things we hear lately. And most times it might be that as an organization, you set some compliance that you have to meet. There are certain organizations that will say this license, for example, Apache license should not be used within the organization, or MIT should not be used. You should only use certain licenses because of some reasons, especially the financial sector. They are highly regulated. And there are some of those that require that. At every point in time, dependencies that are brought into the software meet the license requirement of the organization, probably either because of internal rules that they've set or because of certain regulatory compliance that they need to meet. And one of the ways is to do that is to ensure that continuously you scan every dependency, every tooling, even changes. A lot of projects change license these days, probably to make more money or for some reasons. So it is important to ensure that the licenses that of these applications meet your regulatory requirements. Now, and for example, to meet things like SALSA, stage 3, I think is still in development, your system needs to be trusted. And one of the things that makes your system trusted is you meeting compliance. Meeting all the different types of compliance, depending on your industry, by the way, because I don't think it's every compliance that you have to meet as an organization. Yeah, that's the end of my talk. Thank you very much.
Okay. Do we have Moss, the microphone man? We have time for a couple of questions.
Hello. Yeah. My question is, I see that you're working in GitLab. Does GitLab have some functionalities in order to address some of these things? For example, I know in GitHub you have these things in which you can detect secrets, and it's like you can stop the push before it even happens if you have some things like that. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, GitLab has almost everything that I've talked about today.
All right, one more? Anyone? Yes, please.
Yeah, so just to follow up, you said almost everything you talked about today. What don't you have?
Well done.
That's difficult to answer because definitely, like I said, we don't make our own scanners. Definitely, we depend on scanners that are created by the community. Okay, a Trivi that scans container images or a couple of other tools. So, but I know things like vulnerability management, things like policy management, push rules, and a ton of others. We do have them, definitely. And you know, GitLab as a complete DevOps platform, we don't host your code. So where your application is hosted, we can definitely feed data from it, but the fact that we don't host it means, okay, you need to find other ways to secure your applications depending on where you host them.
Right. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Abubakar Siddiq Ango.
Thank you.